Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. My first two games of the stage I was able to win, which I'm happy about, and today we are going to take a look at the first four-player game of the stage, meaning that all of the players will be involved, and it will also be the first game against SQ, who doesn't have a game finished yet, and who might be potentially the strongest opponent in this group. So that will be very interesting, and now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game I'm playing in the 4th position, and now first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that we have some science synergy in H3. There's Marie Curie, Sid Meier and Einstein, as well as the spaceflight, internet and the Manhattan Project. We have not the most theater synergy. There's only Marlene Dietrich, but no Hollywood and no other leaders for that. We have Churchill for the military, as well as the Manhattan Project, but no Gandhi. Red Cross is in the game, also Pierre is in the game. In H2 we have some interesting wonders, with the Suez Canal being there and the ocean liner service, but there's no Maria Theresa and no James Cook. The Harvard College is there as well. We have all of the military action leaders in H2 with Catherine, Napoleon and Robespierre. We have some culture leaders with Anthony Gaudi and Shakespeare, and some science leaders or economic leaders with Nobel and Newton. In H1 we have one military action leader with Joan of Arc. Barbarossa and Genghis Khan can help with the strength as well. Barbarossa, Eleanor and Columbus can also work nicely in a colonization game. Michelangelo is there, potentially together with Machu Picchu or St. Peter's Basilica, and Leonardo is there as well. Then we have St. Peter's Basilica and the Forbidden City, so two solutions for the happy faces. The Great Wall gives happy face as well and helps with the strength, same as the Himeji Castle. And now, SQ is in the first position and starts with taking the library. HealingAura then will go for the Acropolis and Homer, which is definitely a decent pick. Homer is quite a fine leader in 4-player games, and now he has a leader and a wonder already. And also, if you maybe remember the last game that we saw, there he also took the Acropolis, so maybe he values that wonder quite highly. And if he doesn't take it, then it's also completely uncertain what wonder he might get, so I think it's a solid pick. And then Flackk will make the decision to go for the urban growth, and one of the leaders goes for Confucius, meaning at my turn I basically have to decide which one of those leaders I want to take in addition to the cultural heritage. Because of course I could just take some yellow cards, but I think there's no reason to do it. There could potentially be Boudica as a strong leader, but yeah, there are already some solid leaders on the row. And for me it was mainly a decision between Hippocrates and Ashoka, because Cleopatra can of course be fine, but I don't know at all what wonder I will be getting together with her, and only wonder that I would really like to get with her would be the Stonehenge, because there I can start my economy, my third mine and second lab, without any delay, while at the same time using Clio's bonus every turn. For the Rome roads and the Colossus especially, that's not that easily possible. So with that I didn't want to go for Cleopatra, and then it was a decision between Hippocrates and Ashoka. And it was a relatively close one. When we take a look at the H1 leaders, and that I think is an important thing to take a look at when making such a decision, because the thing is with Hippocrates, if you have him, you want to replace him very early. If you have Ashoka, you ideally want to go for a transitional leader later in the age. And when we take a look at the leaders, there are not that many nice early replacements for potentially Hippocrates. There's no Saladin, no Nostradamus, no Isabella, and all of those leaders are not that easy to be useful early in the game already. On the other hand, we have some nice transitional leaders. Columbus, especially with the Suez Canal, Eleanor, and also potentially Barbarossa can be a nice transitional leader. So yeah, that definitely is something that let me lean towards Ashoka. And yeah, of course Hippocrates is quite a fine leader, but I think in the last position where multiple cards from H1 will be available very early, and I have a yellow card in hand already, and with the transitional leaders being there, I thought that Ashoka is the better pick here than Hippocrates. Of course, I also had to think about if maybe I want to take Hippocrates away from SQ, who is the only opponent without a leader, but he has the library, meaning he can easily just get some nice value out of Cleopatra, so no, I didn't think I have to go for Hippocrates here for denial, especially because it's also a 4-player game, and so at the end I just went for Ashoka. One downside of Ashoka is that maybe he doesn't work that nicely with all of the wonders. The Stonehenge and Rome roads all have 4 steps. I think Stonehenge is maybe more manageable, because you maybe don't want to finish it that early anyway, so you can start with activating Ashoka and then maybe finish it later on. Ideally you maybe get even something like Monarchy or Code of Laws to get more civil actions going. And SQ doesn't even go for Hippocrates, and I think that also definitely makes some sense. Cleopatra does offer him some economical value immediately, and so he goes for her and starts building on the second, or starts with building the second lab. At the next turn can build a third mine and one step of the library if he wants to. Healing Aura just elects a mayor and does some standard stuff with taking the urban growth at the end. And Flackk, interestingly, does go for the Stonehenge. He has Confucius already some additional science, so the Rome roads definitely could have been interesting. But no, the Stonehenge is definitely also a very solid wonder, and I actually might have preferred to get the Stonehenge here over the Rome roads, because as I said, in contrast to the Rome roads that you ideally also want to finish early, and then it can be difficult to finish that one early while also activating Ashoka early. The Stonehenge maybe is fine to finish it later on. So I might have, if I would have the choice between the two, taken the Stonehenge. Now I have to make a decision. Do I want to go for the Rome roads with Ashoka? That's not an ideal combination. Or do I maybe want to do something like just building the mine and then, for example, taking Swordsman, having a military technology already in hand, and also activating the Ashoka bonus. At the next turn I could then either go for the Colossus, and with the Zeus cannon in there that can be a fine wonder, or maybe there's an early H1 wonder available, but there's no Universitas, for example, so there is not a chance to maybe get really rewarded very big. So yeah, with that I at the end made the decision to, even though it's not an ideal combination, to go for the Rome roads, because it's just a very solid economical wonder, and I think maybe it's at its best in 4-player games, because you can just concentrate on yourself without maybe having to be considered that much about what cards your opponents are getting, so you can just work on the Rome roads, get the economical value, maybe without too much downside. And so I made a decision to go for the Rome roads, and at the next turn maybe I do have a chance to activate Ashoka already. The Masonry could be interesting, it might be taken away by Flackk, but there are also some other colored cards coming down the row, so I was hoping that maybe I can just activate Ashoka at the next turn, build a lab, and then with the help of the development maybe I can even finish the Rome roads then in 2 turns. I draw 2 cards, the Call to Arms and a Colonization card. SQ Seeds in the Development of Settlement is revealed, and he will build 1 stage of the library, takes the Engineering Genius, and the Swordsman, interestingly, is willing to delay the 3rd mine for that, but can finish the library the next turn, can maybe still build a mine. He has some additional resource from Cleo already, so it's maybe not too bad, but it's still a little bit of a value loss with not building the mine, but he has now military technology in hand and also the Engineering Genius. Healing Aura Seeds and the Development of Warfare is revealed. He will take the first copy of Iron for 2 civil actions, builds the second lab, and takes the breakthrough. If there's a development revealed that gives some additional science, he can start with going for the Iron already at the next turn. Then it's Flack's turn. He sees in the Development of Civil Life is revealed. He uses it to increase his population, takes the Free Warrior, takes the Iron, takes the Masonry, so takes some colored cards away from me. Especially the Masonry would have been interesting for me, but of course also the Iron, and that means that now only 1 copy of Iron is left in the deck. And now, at my turn I had to make a decision. What do I want to do? I made a decision to take the Free Warrior because I have some free population, and I also used the Development of Civil Life to increase my population. And now I could potentially just build a second lab and then take some cards. Or I could start working on the Rome roads, for example. So there are definitely some different options, but if I just build a lab and want to take some cards, then the question is what cards exactly, and so I ended up taking Leonardo, because I have to take some cards, and there is a copy of Alchemy on the row, and another one coming down the row, and I thought it can be potentially quite strong to get Leonardo running this early. It's not ideal with Ashoka, because it's not a transitional leader really, but still I can maybe get a very strong economic leader going very early, so I thought that should be quite nice. The question is, do I have to take a copy of Alchemy already this turn, or can I just wait maybe for the next turn when I can get one for cheaper? And I made the decision that I want to take the Alchemy in hand. It is somewhat expensive for 2 civil actions, especially considering that I also have to finish the Rome roads at some point. But it could potentially happen that the alchemies are taken away. It's maybe not that likely, but there is a chance, and if those are taken away, then there are 2 copies of Iron and Alchemy already gone, maybe making it potentially that I don't have a nice way to upgrade to anything. and also maybe it's not really necessary to risk missing out on the alchemy, especially the question is what else to do if I just want to get the science production going immediately with building the second lab and I don't take the alchemy, then I just have to take some of those cards, and both of those I maybe don't really want to have. If I maybe start working the Rome roads, that could maybe be fine, build 2 steps and the irrigation, but take the irrigation or the theology. But at the end I made a decision to take the alchemy, and then the question is, do I want to build a second lab this turn, or do I maybe want to wait with it so that I potentially can at the next turn maybe build an alchemy directly, either with some additional science from the developments, or maybe with playing the cultural heritage, electing Leonardo, then building an alchemy directly. That could potentially be very interesting. But it could also be interesting to just finish the Rome roads at the next turn, because, for example, or at least to have the option, then all of those civil actions would be out of the way, and I wouldn't get a science boost from Leonardo, but when I keep Ashoka, I get 1 additional resource production from Ashoka, 1 additional food production from him, and another additional resource production from the Rome roads if I finish that at the next turn. But I don't want to finish the Rome roads at the next turn and then delay my science production for really very long, so I made a decision to build a second lab here already. That allows me to develop the alchemy without having to play the cultural heritage. So it could mean that if there's no science development revealed, then of course I can build an alchemy directly, save a civil action, but I'm forced to play the cultural heritage, so it doesn't really save me a civil action at the next turn potentially. But I also just get 1 additional science going already this turn, and if there's some additional resource from the developments revealed, I have the option to finish the Rome roads at the next turn with already having this lab going. Of course, I could also build a step this turn and finish the Rome roads at the next turn and then build the lab at the next turn, but then I would have just missed out on 1 science. So I think it could have been also very fine to just not build a lab yet and then maybe go for the alchemy directly at the next turn. But I think it's also fine to not save the civil action, get more science instead, and then at the next turn I'm flexible if I want to go for Leonardo immediately, or if I maybe want to finish the Rome roads first, if I have the option to do this. Then I draw 2 cards, another colonization card and the Raiders. SQ finishes the library, builds the 3rd mine with the development of civil life, also is able to take the free warrior from the development of warfare, finishes the library, takes the monarchy. He can develop it potentially already at the next turn with him having some additional science saved up. HealingAura seeds and development of politics is revealed, so additional card draw for everyone. And now, as you can see, I have now 3 colonization cards in hand. I have the Raiders and a new deposit, so some more events that I can choose from. HealingAura goes for the iron, takes the irrigation in hand, the rich land. With having the irrigation, he is now potentially prepared for the Machu Picchu, and then he also takes another copy of rich land, so he can go for those mine and farm upgrades very cheaply. Then Flackk seeds and the development of agriculture is revealed. He takes the cartography and develops it. He has definitely seeded some events with being Confucius, and it definitely might be that those events are colonies, especially with the Suez Canal in there. That could potentially be worthwhile to get some colonies. And then he is revealing the Legion tactic. My turn, I could potentially seed, especially because when additional resources are revealed, then I would have the option to go for the Rome roads if I want to. But when I switch to Leonardo, I have the Rome roads, of course, but in new deposits it's not that great, and also I didn't really want to push any strength events, so I made a decision against pushing, and then I have to work out a turn without finishing the Rome roads, but with having the option to go for Leonardo, that's definitely not bad. I just elect him, go for 1 upgrade to alchemy, increase my population to get out of corruption, and then I, with my last civil action, made a decision. First of all, I made a decision to build a warrior. It's maybe not really necessary, but I think it definitely can be important. First of all, if my opponents continue seeding, then it might prevent me from being weakest, at least until HealingAura's turn, and also potentially it allows me to more easily get stronger at the next turn, because the Legion tactic will be available to copy at the next turn. If I don't build a warrior now, I could not have a Legion tactic ongoing, but if I have this, if I spend a military action to build a warrior already this turn, and I can copy the Legion tactic at the next turn going up to 5 strength, maybe that alone will already be enough to not be the weakest, meaning I can maybe just concentrate myself on upgrading my economy even more if I want to. So I just thought this warrior is maybe important to have, especially because I don't have any other tactic. Alternatively, I could have maybe taken the knights if I have a knights tactic. But I don't have any tactic for myself, so I made a decision to just prepare for the one tactic that will be available soon, and it is the Legion tactic. And with my last civil action, I then took the Engineering Genius. That gives me the option to just finish the Rome roads at the next turn, which could be nice, depending on what cards are there that I maybe want to take. But if there's nothing interesting, it can be a very nice option to have. Or if I maybe don't need it for the Rome roads, then I can also keep it for longer. And there's some very interesting H2 wonders where I can maybe use it for its full resources. Then I draw the inhabited territory, so that I have now knowledge about one strong colony that isn't in the deck. SQ goes for developing the alchemy, like this can use Cleo's resources, and then with his last civil action will take the urban growth to potentially save even more resources. HealingAura will go for one more upgrade to the Iron Mines, takes the Knights in hand, builds an additional warrior using Homer's resources, and goes for one more upgrade, but both of those opponents didn't get stronger, so at the moment I would even be one of the 2 strongest, but sadly the event deck is not flipped yet, so I don't have the chance to be part of any strength event. And Flackk seeds, so the event deck is flipped now, the development of religion is revealed, I have a free worker to take this, and Flackk, after having the free religion, now makes the decision to go for Joan of Arc, get some additional strength, get an additional military action. He wants to go for a colonization game, that might also be very helpful. And then also, of course, the knowledge about the top event is quite nice. He builds a warrior, is now at 7 strength, so it's also maybe putting a little bit of pressure on his opponents. My turn, I don't want to push. I would be one of the 2 strongest, but I don't want to push the inhabited territory into the deck with one of my opponents planning maybe to go for a colonization game, with the Suez Canal being the game, so I just skip the politics phase. I copy the Legion tactic, which will allow me now to get a bit stronger, and then the question is, do I just want to finish the Rome roads, or is there some other stuff that I want to do? And I came to the conclusion that there is indeed some other stuff that I want to do, because it's the last copy of Swordsman on the row, and as I don't have any tactic for the Knights available, so I think the Swordsman is an important technology here, and I also made the decision to actually grab the Warfare, because it could just be very nice to have a way to get a 3rd military action in case one of my opponents will go for a bit of strength. And also, in case I get a Republic later on, then that works a bit better with the Warfare. There's only one copy of strategy for 4 players in the 4-player game, so I think the Warfare can be a decent technology, especially if I have a lot of science ongoing with Leonardo, so I wanted to have both of those technologies in hand. And then with my last 2 civil actions, I made a decision to first of all build upgrade one more lab to get even more science production, and then I used the Engineering Genius in the Rome roads. I could have also just played the Cultural Heritage, but using the Engineering Genius allows me to finish the Rome roads at the next turn, while also having one free civil action, which I could use to potentially develop the Warfare to get a bit stronger and an additional military action, or I could use it to take a card that I want to take if there's something interesting on the row, so I thought it is nice to have. And then ideally I at the next turn can finish the Rome roads while still being able to defend myself, either going for Warfare or Swordsman, so that I get even more economy going, while hopefully not being the weakest. Then I just keep the 2 colonization cards. SQ doesn't see it, is the weakest, he develops the monarchy and is actually going for Genghis Khan. That might mean that he has a nice tactic for me available, and he indeed has the heavy cavalry tactic. With that he is now one of the 2 strongest and generates some additional culture and is prepared for potential strength events. Had to miss out sadly on the resource from Cleo this turn, but he has already some decent economy going and maybe can start upgrading to iron relatively soon. HealingAura finishes the Acropolis this turn and will just go for the Machu Picchu, so he wants to get a lot of resource production. He doesn't have a lot of civil actions and science production yet, so that can always be a bit tricky, but the Machu Picchu has of course some potential. His problem is that he doesn't have a leader yet, and there are only 3 left, and the next turn might be his last one to still replace Homer, so that could be a bit of an issue for him, especially with being low civil actions, but the Machu Picchu would work nicely with Michelangelo, that he can maybe still potentially get. He also reveals the fighting band tactic going up to 5 strength. Interestingly, isn't willing to copy the Legion tactic. With that, he would even avoid that he isn't the weakest at his turn. But the fighting band maybe could help him to potentially bid more for a colony, so maybe that was his reasoning, or he just wanted to draw one more card with not being forced to copy a tactic. Flackk this turn finishes the Stonehenge, gets some additional science, uses the masonry for that, and then takes the irrigation. At my turn, I developed the warfare, and I could just finish the Rome roads, but especially if I don't take any cards from the row, there very likely will be an additional turn for me, or almost for certain, as with HealingAura having only 4 civil actions, and also flags, so that should almost be guaranteed. I'm not forced to finish the Rome roads this turn. I could just do it, and that was definitely a consideration from me. But at the moment I'm one of the 2 weakest. HealingAura might just at his turn increase his population, build an additional warrior potentially, or maybe if he gets Barbarossa, use the Barbarossa activation, then I might be weakest on Flack's turn. And I thought, no, with having the option to go for the Rome roads also the next turn, I made a decision to just develop the warfare and the swordsman, go for a bunch of upgrades, increase my population to get out of corruption. Now I'm at 9 strength, I'm even the strongest, and I hopefully won't be punished by any strength event with being the weakest. And then that also gives me the chance to grab the breakthrough with my last civil action, which, even though I have some nice science production, can still be very useful because I still need a government form. I want to go for coal ideally at some point, with all of the copies of iron gone. I could have also thought about the bread and circuses, but I wanted to make it as unlikely as possible that the age will end, and also the breakthrough is just a very valuable card, and there might be another chance to grab the bread and circuses the next turn. Instead of grabbing the breakthrough, I could have also just played a cultural heritage. That would give me 1 science for 1 civil action and for a culture. And if I take the breakthrough now, and there is a card that I maybe want to take it the next turn, then there's a chance that I don't have the chance to play the cultural heritage before the end of the age. But even if that should happen, there is definitely the case that at this point of the game, the 1 additional science that I get with taking the breakthrough is worth more than the 4 culture. It's probably close, and it could definitely be argued that the 4 culture is worth more. Especially because now in 2 turns I will have 10 science saved up, meaning with the cultural heritage I would be at 11, meaning with that I would be able to go for Republic in case there was one very early available. So that is definitely a reason towards pushing the cultural heritage, but yeah, even if I should lose it, there is a case to be made that just 1 more science at this point of the game is maybe more important than the additional culture. And then there is a leader on the row, giving HealingAura maybe the option to replace Homer at his next turn, even though it will be very costly. SQ Seeds and the first colony is revealed. I was just willing to bid 1 unit in my colonization cards. I didn't really expect to win it, but I was hoping that maybe it will at least cost Flackk a little bit more to win it, and at least he has to send a colonization card away, but it's definitely a nice deal for him, and he starts to get some value out of his cartography. SQ goes for the last upgrade to Alchemy, goes for Swordsman, goes up to 10 strength, meaning I'm sadly not the strongest any longer, and then he takes the bread and circuses and also the frugality at the next turn. He has enough science to go for the iron if he wants to, and with the rich land can even go for 2 upgrades immediately. Both of the leaders are available only for 3 for HealingAura, and he actually makes the decision to not pay that much for them. I mean, it would be quite costly. It's of course also very annoying to lose him as happy faces, or a tough decision to make, but he makes the decision to just develop the knights, get stronger, otherwise he might even be in danger of an aggression potentially. Play the medieval army tactic, is now at 8 strength, use the resource at least from Homer 1 more turn time, and also with him taking not any cards, there is at least a chance that he might still be able to replace him at the next turn. Then it's Flack's turn, he seeds and the strategic territory is revealed. Again, I'm willing to bid 4, but again, if Flackk is able to win it, he has not a colonization card and has now already 2 colonies, so a Suez Canal might be very big for him. He has also the masonry to finish it very efficiently. This turn he will go for the Code of Laws, going up to 5 civil actions, takes the monarchy, so the game is maybe not dependent on H2 government forms, and then rebuilds 1 warrior to go up to 6, and with copying the fighting band 7 strength, maybe he doesn't want to be in danger of getting hit by an aggression, and maybe also wants to have the tactic available for potentially colonizing even another territory if one is coming, but for now he stays the weakest. Then it is my turn. I can't use my politics phase in this turn. Of course, I definitely want to finish the Roman roads, and the main question is what to do with my last civil action. And what I thought might be best for myself, even though it might be close, is to just play the cultural heritage, just get this one additional science, and also for culture, that definitely is, while not being that relevant in this stage of the game, still something. And as I said, that means that at the next turn I have 11 instead of 10 science, so there is, just in case there is an early republic, it could potentially make quite a difference. But, yeah, so I thought maybe that's just best for myself, but an interesting option could also be to take the bread and circuses in hand, just to have it available for Pierre, and also potentially for Antoni Gaudi. And there's also one thing, that taking this bread and circuses or not does influence quite a bit the turns of my opponents. It influences the turn of SQ a bit in a positive way, because with him having the monarchy, he probably wants to have the code of laws just to be able to go up to a bit more civil actions at some point, with him also having quite a decent science production. And if I take the bread and circuses now, that falls down to 1 civil action. However, if I don't take the bread and circuses, I thought maybe a turn could very likely look like this. Develop the iron, go for 2 upgrades, and then just take the code of laws. The other cards, bread and circuses he can't take, alchemy he can't take, a wonder he could potentially take, but a wonder and the alchemy is already quite expensive. So if I don't take the bread and circuses, then that means very, very, very likely that Healing Aura will actually be able to replace Homer at the end. So that is definitely to take something to take into account. And as it was quite a close decision for me anyway, I at the end made the decision to take the bread and circuses, so that the age will end before Healing Aura's turn, because I think losing the happy face for the rest of the game is quite a bit of a value loss, and with it only being a close decision for me anyway, I was at the end willing to go for this basically very, very small hate draft, because I go maybe for a very, very slightly less good option for myself in order to let the age end before Healing Aura's turn. Of course, it makes SQ's turn a little bit better, but it's I thought that maybe he would just still go for 2 iron upgrades and take the code of laws, and then with his last civil action he would now be able to increase his population. That of course means that he is 1 civil action ahead. It is probably helpful for him, but I thought maybe it doesn't change his turn fundamentally, so I thought the damage that I do to Healing Aura is a lot bigger than help that I maybe give SQ. Then I draw 3 cards, Fighting Band Tactic, the Reds and the Cultural Influence. SQ seeds and opens another colony, so the first 3 events all were colonies, and as you can see, actually I am able to win it this time. It was quite a tough decision if I want to bid for this or not, because the problem is, if I bid for this now, I lose the Swordsman, I lose the Legion tactic. I'm not in danger of an aggression, but there are 2 opponents in front of me. SQ, for example, did put a bit of effort into getting stronger with going for Genghis Khan and upgrading to Swordsman, so there could be some strength events coming, and it could potentially be even that 2 of my opponents seed before my next turn, meaning I could really get punished for sending away the Swordsman now. So that's the one thing, so I was very afraid, but on the other hand, I am able to rebuild the Swordsman immediately thanks to the additional happy face. The happy face might actually be quite useful, meaning I don't necessarily have to go for bread and circuses, but if I should maybe go for it at some point, maybe it's also better or easier to use the bread and circuses as a sufficient happy face solution with the help from the 1 happy face from the historic territory. And of course there is a Suez Canal in the game. I thought it could be nice to have 1 colony, so that if the Suez Canal is in a row for me and I have maybe a decent H2 colony, then I can just take it and make sure that Flackk doesn't get it, because if he should now win this colony, because I thought even though it might be a bit costly for him with already having sent a lot of warriors away, he might still just bid for the colony, and then he might have even another colony, so at least I want to make him pay, or maybe want to prevent him from having yet another colony, and now I get the happy face, which might potentially be useful for me. I'm potentially prepared for a Suez Canal, but I definitely might get punished in the next 2 politics phases. It was quite a close call for me, quite a tough decision, and at the end I made the decision to bid for the colony, and I'm also able to win it for 1 Swordsman in my colonization cards. And now at the next turn I can rebuild a Swordsman. In 2 turns I will even be able to increase my population, and then I have even another worker that I can put somewhere, potentially into swordsman, so it can, in long term, it might even help me to get more strength, because without a territory I wouldn't be able to go for 4 swordsmen in the near future very easily. SQ actually doesn't go for the turn I predicted, and that's definitely an option that I maybe should have taken more into account when thinking about this turn. He actually goes for the Great Wall, so maybe it does actually make quite a bit of a difference now that he can take the Code of Laws for 1 civil action less, because that means he can go for an iron upgrade while also being able to take the Code of Laws and the Great Wall. The Happy Face from the Great Wall will be relatively useful for him, with having already 3 swordsmen. That definitely has a lot of potential, so I think no, that's definitely a strong option for him, but at least it means for now he is blockaded from going for any of those strong H2 wonders, so I often try to let myself open for those, but the Great Wall has definitely a lot of potential, especially in 4-player games, whereas sometimes it gets military heavy. That can be a very important bonus, so I think it is actually quite a strong wonder here for SQ, and I didn't maybe take that into account enough when I thought about his turn. Now H2 starts, meaning for HealingAura that is bad news, because he will lose Homer. Now I will lose the cultural heritage. And then HealingAura will go for Michelangelo. Barbarossa maybe could have been an option as well, but he has some issues with his happy faces, has to basically increase his population to make it less painful to handle the uprising issues. And then Michelangelo with the Machu Picchu has just a lot of potential. If he gets something like Ocean Line or Harvard with him very cheaply and can finish it, then there is definitely the potential to make a bit of a comeback, because at the moment I think he has maybe the trickiest position. So Michelangelo has at least the potential to generate him a lot of value, and then if that should happen, easily bring him back into the game. And of course, even if that doesn't happen, there is still a lot of time left and maybe ways to fix his economy, for example with a scientific method, or with somehow getting into a government form quickly. That also can already be quite helpful for his position. Flackk seeds, and I was very happy first of all to see that HealingAura didn't seed, and now to see that Flackk seeds and no strength event is open, so I don't get punished for being weakest for a while, and instead I gain even the most out of the scientific breakthrough, scoring 6 additional science. The Roman Roads has now switched also to science production, and I have now a lot of science to work with. There is actually a very early republic, but Flackk makes the decision that he maybe doesn't want me to have it, because I would be able to get into it immediately, but also for himself it might be a strong option. At the next turn he doesn't have corruption, so he could even do a revolution, or he can just go for it peacefully if there's something like Harvard College, for example. At my turn I definitely want to rebuild the swordsman to go up to 9 strength, to not be the weakest any longer, and then it was a bit tricky what to do with this turn. Because I have not the most hand space, and I don't really need any of those H1 cards, so at the end I just made the decision to take the cannons already this turn. If I don't take it, then SQ might have the chance to take it. He has the Great Wall, so now there is at least still the chance that he maybe misses out on the cannons, and then doesn't get as much value out of his wonder, and it's just nice to have the cannons in hand to be prepared for more tactics. I think that's more important than any of those yellow cards. I thought I'd think about the Engineering Genius, because that yellow card could actually be quite helpful for me to maybe go for an H2 wonder even if I don't get into coal early, so that was definitely an alternative that I considered. But maybe there's even a chance I could get it at my next turn, and so I instead rather wanted to make sure that I get the cannons. But then the question is also what to do with my last civil action, because the problem is if I, for example, now just take the reserves, I have a full hand, and it could be quite problematic with me only having 4 civil actions. If there's a government farm on the row for me at the next turn for 3 civil actions, I can't go for it, because I would need a civil action to make space in my hand, and with that I didn't want to take a 4th card in hand, but the only way to do anything is to develop a card already. And so the question was, do I want to develop the cannons or the bread and circuses? And both are viable options, both are cards that might get useful at some point, but maybe if I get a nice way to get an H2 happy face solution, maybe I don't really need the bread and circuses. If I get a classic army, I don't need the cannons, but the bread and circuses should almost always be somewhat useful to have. and I can just maybe use it as a happy face solution, especially now that I have the additional happy face from the historic territory. I don't really need it now, but I might need it at some point. And there is also Pierre in the game and Antony Gaudi, so I thought it's a lot better to just develop the bread and circus already and then don't commit to the cannons quite yet. Then I draw my first H2 cards, the popularization of science and the historic territory. Popularization of science definitely could become a very decent event to seed, and the historic territory could potentially allow me to go for the Suez Canal in case that wonder should be available soon. SQ seeds, and I indeed was potentially in danger of getting hit by a strength event, but with only one event being revealed, I got lucky with not getting hit by the border conflict, and now Flackk will have to lose something while SQ gets some additional resources. With the additional resources, he cannot even finish the Great Wall. It means that he delays his iron upgrades for a bit, but with the Ridgeland he can still go for 2 upgrades at the next turn, meaning that no, he can still get his economy going quite quickly, and now he's also prepared again to grab maybe one of those strong H2 wonders who maybe had knowledge about this event and knew that he can finish the Great Wall quite quickly, and now he can maybe easily get a strong H2 wonder in addition to the Great Wall, and he is now at 13 strength, so he has definitely some nice stuff going. HealingAura at his turn just finishes the Machu Picchu and then also grabs the breakthrough for some additional science. Flackk will take the selective breeding, that's definitely an upgrade over the irrigation, will develop it immediately, doesn't go for the Republic Revolution. I think that could have been also an interesting option. There will be more copies of selective breeding, there will be the ocean liner service, so I think it maybe could have been also very interesting to do a revolution already, but this option might also be available for him at the next turn still, and now he gets already some food production going. As you can see, there is another government form on the row, and now I get rewarded for making sure that I have free hand space, because I will have the option now to just take and develop the constitutional monarchy. I maybe would have preferred the Republic with the warfare, but definitely can also be nice to have a lot of military actions, especially in case the game should turn military heavy at some point, but short term probably the additional civil action would do more work. There is one event left, and I this turn will increase my populations. I seeded the rats into the deck because some opponents have already started their food production, so there's the potential that there is quite some food lost. The event revealed is the foray, so I definitely got a bit lucky with the scientific breakthrough being revealed at the point when I was the weakest, because now I didn't get hit by the border conflict and I'm actually part of the foray. With me wanting to go ideally exactly to 0 food, I made just a decision to go for the 3 additional resources. I want to go for the Conmon, otherwise it might be taken away by HealingAura. He can go for it with the Acropolis relatively soon, so he might just take it away, and so I just wanted to make sure that I don't play on 4 civil actions for a lot of time longer, and I developed a Conmon, increased my population, and then the question is what to do with my last civil action, because it's actually quite difficult to get out of corruption. There's actually only one nice way to do it, or maybe, there would be the way to develop the cannons, build one, and the swordsman build a cannon, but not a nice way to do it. So before the foray was revealed, I thought about if I maybe want to commit to a cannon already, just getting a bit stronger, but now if I develop the cannons I get an additional resource from Leonardo, and that one resource will prevent me from getting out of corruption with building the cannon. I just thought about just building another swordsman, getting a bit stronger, and then just accepting the corruption, and I think that might be a fine solution, but then I already commit to an additional swordsman without knowing what tactic I might get, and I also do have corruption, which is not ideal. But I think it would be a fine solution, but there is also the alternative, the one alternative to get out of corruption, and that is with building a 3rd lab. But that option is somewhat greedy. I don't really need the science production right now. It definitely might pay off at some point. It's always nice to have a lot of science. There are a lot of blue techs that I can invest into. So at some point the additional science might definitely pay off, but it's not really anything that I need short term. It's a big resource investment and also a commitment to put this worker there. If SQ maybe pushes a bit of military, then I might really regret spending that many resources for that. Especially now that he might be able to take the second copy of cannon, sadly. So I wasn't really certain, do I want to commit this worker there and the resources, or do I just want to build a swordsman and have corruption? And at the end I made a decision to build the lab. There are some leaders where it could be nice to have that third lab like Sid Meier or Einstein. There's the spaceflight in Manhattan Project later on, so there's some synergy later on. There could be Nobel Prizes. So I just thought it can still be nice to have even more science production to build an even bigger economy. But yeah, if there's now a lot of military pressure from SQ, then it could definitely be quite dangerous to not have another population available or not have already some additional strength with the population being in swordsman. So instead of building a swordsman, I could have just also built nothing and accepted 2 corruption that I think I only had. So that also would have been option, not committing anything. But at the end, I made a decision to get out of corruption, get even more science production, but I was a bit worried that SQ might push. At least I have a lot of military action, so I could maybe, I don't have to be too much afraid to get hit by an aggression, but of course there could potentially be H2 wars, especially if SQ also gets the strategy at some point, and I have the warfare, I'm in front of him, so I maybe don't really want to take it, and it might make it more likely that SQ might get a chance to take the strategy at some point. SQ actually does go for an aggression against HealingAura. He had only has only 2 military actions, but he has an H1 and an H2 defense card, and with that is able to defend. SQ interestingly is going for the selective breeding, wants to get some food production going immediately. That might backfire a bit for him because I just see that the rats in there. And then with his last civil action he goes for one more upgrade to his iron mines, meaning that at the next turn he has exactly enough resource to upgrade his last farm and his last mine. But he actually is willing to not take the cannons, which is interesting, because that is of course a nice card to have with the Great Wall, so maybe it could have been an option to wait with the selective breeding, but of course it's also not bad to get some food production going already. Then HealingAura will go for the organized religion, develops it and builds one, and then that allows him to build one knight. He just had to send away a colonization card to defend, and yeah, so he probably just wants to get stronger so that he isn't in danger of an aggression, needs a happy face solution at some point anyway, and so just invests his resource into there, which I think is a good decision. Then it's Flack's turn. He seeds. He is the weakest, sees it with Joan of Arc, but maybe the Crusades at that point is not the most important event. Maybe he had an event that he really wants to push into the deck. And at his turn, he will just do Revolution, and as we can see, none of them takes the cannons, so maybe SQ also just took a very careful look at their turn. I think the turn of HealingAura could potentially have been predicted relatively easily, and also Flack's turn with the Revolution, at least that is the option that he might do it, might have been, yeah, might have been at least a strong option for him, so maybe SQ just thought, yeah, he actually has some decent chance to get the cannons for cheaper at his next turn, and now he gets rewarded for it. Then Flackk also builds one additional warrior. And at my turn, I will offer the international agreement that I drew to Flackk. I want to have additional resource, and you know that the rats are coming, so taking additional food at this point is not really what I need. I will go for the coldest turn, so long term the food might actually be more valuable, but with the rats coming I just didn't want to offer it for food, and instead offer it for additional resources. And ideally I want to offer it to HealingAura, but I just had fear that he either might reject it or accept it and then cancel it, because he has a lot of food production already, so if I give him more, maybe it will just cause corruption issues, so he could just accept it, cancel it, and then I miss out on a bit of value, because it's quite early, so I can now have the pact for quite a while. So with that, I was not willing to offer it to HealingAura. Instead, I wanted to offer it to either SQ or Flackk, and I thought both of their positions are relatively similarly strong. Both of them have some nice stuff going. Flackk is missing some science production for now, but has a lot of civil actions, which is quite strong. SQ has at the moment a culture lead and also maybe the more balanced economy, but not as many civil actions. So I thought both of their positions are relatively similarly strong, maybe with a small favor for SQ because he has the Great Wall, which always can just allow him to go for a big military push if he draws the right cards. And with that, I then made a decision to offer it to Flackk, especially because the food might actually help him with going for some military in case he gets the cards for it. Maybe at some point it will make the difference between having an additional population or not, and then that could make quite a difference. So with him potentially being a bigger threat for the military, I at the end offered additional food to Flackk. Then at this turn I took the coal, I just develop it and upgrade one, going up to 6 resource production now together with the pact, so I was quite happy that I was able to get a government form and a coal going both relatively early. And then I have one civil action left, and I sadly can't take the cannons away from SQ, but I can take one yellow card, and I made a decision to go for the engineering genius. I have more than enough science, and with there being a lot of very interesting wonders available, I just thought the engineering genius might very likely be useful, even just for the statue. It could be very nice now that I have an H2 government form, and so I was confident that I will be able to use it, and I just took that instead of the urban growth because it gives me one more resource. And also interestingly, the card row I think moved very, very slowly at this point of the game, because maybe remember it was 2 turns ago where I considered to take the cannons or the engineering genius too, and now 2 turns later they're still available in the row even at that spot, and that really shows that the card row at this point moved quite slowly. Sadly, I'm the weakest at this point, definitely a downside of having gone for this additional lab instead of maybe being able to go for an additional swordsman, but this is how it is. At least some strength events are already out. I draw my first tactic, maybe not the ideal one, but yeah, at least if I get a cavalryman, I have a tactic that I can go for. Also, I have a colonization card in hand, which might be useful in case SQ goes for a bit more strength. The reds are revealed now, but that works out very nicely for me. I don't lose any food, and HealingAura even loses 10 food. Maybe it's not even too bad for him, because maybe it helps him even to get out of corruption, but still, it's quite a big value loss, and he definitely could have used the population to maybe build an additional lab with the Acropolis or something, so definitely quite bad for him, and also for the others who already went for some early selective breedings. SQ goes for the navigation, develops it, so maybe he either seeded some colonies in himself or is expecting some more to come, with Flackk having gone for the cartography. And then, of course, now he is going for the cannons. Doesn't go for the cavalryman, which could be an indicator that he has a tactic already where he doesn't need them, or maybe just thought that the other things are more important to do. HealingAura takes the wave of nationalism, the rifleman, and the breakthrough. And then Flackk seeds and opens the Dark Ages. So after the reds worked out nicely for me, now there's an event reveal that hurts me quite heavily. At least it doesn't really prevent me from doing anything. It's just a lot of value that I lose long term, but no, it's not really a big disaster, but of course it is a bit annoying to lose 7 signs to that event. Flackk takes the cavalryman and the cannon, making sure that he has some military technologies in hand, takes the patriotism, which might be a useful card for him, especially if he should miss out on the strategy, takes the Statue of Liberty to have a wonder available, which could potentially prevent him from getting the Suez Canal, but at the next turn, if the Suez Canal should be in a row, he can just finish the statue and take the Suez, so that should be easily possible for him. With taking that many cards from the row, so the card row movement is changing a little bit now. With taking that many cards, that means that even Nobel is available for 1 civil action for me, and it will be an interesting option for me at my turn. And also there's the selective breeding available, and I thought it was basically a must grab for me, because it's the last copy. I don't know if I get the ocean liner service with the other players already having some food production. Maybe they don't take it, but it's not for certain, so I think it's really a card that I really have to take, even if I should go for the ocean liner service at the end. And then I also made a decision to go for Nobel, because if we take a look at the alternatives, I don't need Robespierre, and then the ones that are still in the deck. Napoleon, of course, could be fine. Catherine could be somewhat fine. Gaudi could be somewhat fine. So there are a lot of fine leaders, but Nobel is available now. His strength makes sure that I can make sure to not be the weakest any longer, which is a very big point, and he also improves my science production even by another point. So I thought I want to go for him, but before I can go for him, I can score 1 more resource with Leonardo with developing the selective breeding, and then I will just start with 2 food upgrades, because the reds are out now, and it could just be important to get some population going now in case SQ goes for some push with his strength. Then it can be very important to be able to increase the population instead of having to delete something, and I have already some decent resource production, so it's not too bad to maybe delay the second mine upgrade to the next turn. I draw some cards, the International Agreement and the Crime Wave. SQ takes the Rich Land, the Opera, the Journalism, so with taking all of those cards and also with having the Bread and Circuses, he is now very well prepared to go potentially for an Antony Gaudi. or maybe even Shakespeare if he maybe finds enough free population. HealingAura seeds, and again I got a bit lucky with the event timing. Again, I was not punished at the time when I was the weakest, and now Flackk will lose the yellow token as SQ is able to gain an additional yellow token. HealingAura then goes for Rifleman, goes for 2 upgrades, increases population to get out of corruption, and then takes the constitutional monarchy and the scientific method. At the next turn maybe can go for some science upgrades, finally get some nice science production going, and then at some point also get, with the Acropolis bonus, the Conmon going. So far I didn't find the time to go for Michelangelo, so now being on 4 civil action with that big of a production is always a bit tricky to play. Maybe even he can now get some nice stuff going with the scientific method and the Conmon. Flackk seeds, and event revealed is the immigration. SQ will profit from that and gains an additional population, which might be nice in case he wants to go for one of those culture leaders, but also of course if he wants to go for a bit of military pressure. Flackk finishes the Statue of Liberty, could potentially think about Oceaner, but of course he has a lot of food production and a lot of back yellow bank, so yeah, that is not really an option. Just my general, every time I see the Ocean Liner service and masonry and some resource production, of course, I think always see it as a nice option, but I think in this case it probably would be a bit of an overkill with this nice yellow bank and even the additional food production from the Pact, especially with him maybe still planning to go for the Suez Canal, so it's of course the right decision to not go for the Ocean Liner service. Instead he goes for Napoleon, making sure that he has an additional military action once he loses Joan of Arc. Now he loses Joan of Arc, but he still has 3. It also gets some additional strength. Takes the journalism. Maybe instead of building a second lab at some point, just can build a journalism now. And also takes the Rifleman, meaning that he has all of the H2 military technologies available now. With building a warrior, he makes sure to get stronger. So is now prepared for potential strength events. Maybe even one seeded by himself. Nonetheless, I was willing to seed. And did he see it? Yeah, so he didn't see the event with Joan of Arc, so it's not certain that there's a strength event, but definitely possible. But I just wanted to get a popularization of science into the next event. Now with having Nobel and being in 3 labs, even though the Rome roads will switch soon into culture production, it still can give me maybe the most culture, and so I just wanted to have this in the next event deck, also just to have a little bit of knowledge about this. I do get punished for it, but I wouldn't have gotten stronger this turn anyway, so it's also not too bad to get hit by the Rain of Terror. It's definitely annoying. I don't have a free population, so of course I would have preferred to not get hit by it, but I dodged already some strength events, so it's definitely fine that I also get hit by one. And I made a decision to lose the religion, so that I can just go for bread and circuses, and it just doesn't cost me any economical value for now. Of course, it's annoying to lose the culture production, and the happy face could still be nice to have, but at the end it was my preferred loss for the Reign of Terror. I have a lot of science, so I thought those blue technologies are really interesting, getting the justice system, getting the architecture. Could of course wait for the H3 counterparts, but I don't know when I will get them, and I think especially the architecture can still be very, very, very valuable, but also the justice system for some additional resources, blue tokens. Then I also want to get the next coal upgrade going. So that's it's nice to get this done, having even a stronger economy. Before the Reign of Terror was revealed, I could have had maybe the option, instead of going for the upgrade, to either develop the cannons, build 1 cannon, making sure that I'm not the weakest, or maybe building a swordsman, making sure that I'm not the weakest. But the only tactic that I have in hand for now is the hussars, so I would commit to units that I maybe don't need for my tactic. And also some strength events are out now. So I just didn't want to delay my upgrade in order to go for those things. Now I have 3 civil actions left. They're maybe not the most important cards to take. I definitely could take the reserves, and then maybe to use my civil actions I could just develop the architecture already, increase my population or something, so I definitely could play my turn in a fine fashion. But even though I also have some additional food production, already made the decision to go for the ocean liner service actually. It's definitely not a clear decision. I thought Suez Canal might be taken away. The Harvard might even be more overkill than the ocean liner service, because I have just a lot of science already, and maybe it could just be nice to go for computers if I want to go for Sid Meier or Marie Curie, and then it could just be overkill with those things. Ocean liner service could potentially be overkill, but I think the additional population can still be quite useful, especially with me maybe having not the most efficient happy face solution, with potentially needing a lot of workers into the military. I think especially in 4-player games it can be very nice to have a lot of population, because that allows to keep a balanced civilization whilst being able to put a lot into the military. And so I was willing to go for the ocean liner service here, but I think it's not a clear decision, and I think without having the engineering genius, I probably would already not do it. But now I kind of want to get some value out of the engineering genius, and the Suez Canal very likely might be taken away by Flackk. Harvard College might be even more overkill. The Kremlin is tricky with me having only bread and circus as a happy face solution, and waiting for an H2, H3 wonder, it's just always uncertain if I will be able to use it at all, and getting the ocean liner service for only 6 resources and also somewhat efficiently with me maybe wanting to have the architecture anyway. I just thought it's relatively cheap now and might still give me a very nice amount of value, because just having a lot of population is very nice in H3. Now I draw some cards and get the civil unrest, terrorism, which could potentially be interesting. SQ seeds, and I was not willing to bid because it would leave me vulnerable to an aggression. And it's actually, there are quite some high bids for this wealthy territory, and at the end Flackk is actually able to win it for 2 warriors and 3 colonization cards, so quite a big price for the wealthy territory 1, but the reward definitely might be quite big. Also the danger, because HealingAura has maybe the potential to play an aggression against Flackk now, but if Flackk doesn't get punished, he has now another colony for the Suez Canal. SQ and HealingAura don't have any colonies, so he has maybe decent chances to get it, and now thanks to the additional resources from the wealthy territory, he can even just take and finish the Suez Canal immediately, which wasn't possible before, so he might just give it a big economical boost, and with that it might be worth it to pay those warriors, especially if he maybe has a tactic that he can also transition into, but of course it's also quite a bit risky, because I don't know of course his cards, but he would need 2 more defense cards. That seems a bit unlikely to have in order to defend against HealingAura. So if HealingAura has an aggression, which maybe it's definitely not a given with him not having had the most draws, but there is definitely the danger to get punished. SQ makes the decision to go for Newton. Anthony Gaudi is relatively late, and Shakespeare may be a bit tricky to pull off at the end in a 4-player game, so Newton also of course gives some nice value, especially also with the journalism. So SQ goes for Newton and then just takes the Suez Canal, so that's a very interesting choice. I think this choice is definitely partly also a hate pick from Flackk, but if he has a decent colony, then also with only 1 colony, the Suez Canal can be somewhat fine, especially with the autonomous territory, with him having not the most civil and military actions yet. It could be a very nice upgrade, and if he has this, and then combined with the denial aspect, it might be worthwhile to go for this, even though it costs some corruption, but it's definitely quite costly. I was happy to see it, because it might be a bit too costly for him to just be worthwhile for himself, and it takes something away from Flackk, so maybe 2 of my opponents are just get hurt by those moves, so I was happy to see it. But of course, if SQ has something like autonomous territory, it might be a very reasonable choice, because Flackk might just get a very, very big boost if he gets the Suez Canal, and it's still at least decent value that SQ gets out of him. Just a lot more pleasant to play with 7 instead of only 6 civil actions in H3. HealingAura goes for the plunder, meaning Flackk does get punished. HealingAura actually takes 5 food, which makes sense because there's a lot of resource saved up and lost a lot of food to the rats. He will now go for Michelangelo, so very, very late, but he still goes for him, and actually also can use his ability 1 time. Sadly for him, he is missing 1 civil action to just finish the Gremlin, so that's of course a bit annoying, but with the Gremlin he maybe can finally invest his resource somewhat nicely as the organized religion, so if he just builds an additional religion and finishes the Gremlin, and maybe can go for the Con at the next turn, he finally can get a very nice boost out of his big resource production that he already has going on for a while. Then he takes the revolutionary idea, increases his population, and builds the rifleman to get out of corruption. Now H3 starts, and Flackk seeds, opens the vast territory, and as you can see, I'm actually able to win it, and with me not having that many colonization cards in hand, that means that I was actually willing to go all in for that colony, which is definitely a controversial choice. But yeah, my reason for it was mostly transitioning purposes, because with having selective breedings and now getting the ocean liner service, I really don't need this colony. I mean, it might still be somewhat useful. Maybe I don't have to build up bread and circuses now for some while longer, but yeah, that is definitely now overkill now that I have the ocean liner service, most likely. But if I don't win this, then it's not that easy to maybe get into Hussars. But now, if I just send all of my swordsmen away, then I'm forced to build 2 cavalrymen, otherwise I'm in big trouble of getting hit by an aggression. And so I'm forced to do this, so it forces my next turn, which can also be annoying in case there's an interesting option from H3 available for myself. But then I can just transition into Hussars and easier. And that was at the end the reason why I was willing to bid, and of course also partly it is hate bid. Because SQ has the navigation, just took the Suez Canal, Flackk has sent all of those colonization cards away, and SQ has bid 9 on his bid before. So I thought if I don't bid as much, he very likely wins the colony, maybe even for just 1 unit. That would in general be a very good rate for him, but with also getting 1 additional resource production now, then with the Suez Canal, it might just be a very strong colony for himself, and I wasn't really certain if it is really worth it for myself. With the transitioning purposes, it does have some value for myself, but now I also maybe did something with partly hate picking reasons, and yeah, was willing to bid for this colony, my whole army, and the colonization card, and that's also what I have to send away for it. And now you can see I have yeah, lots of food production and also the ocean liner service lying around. So if I would have known that I win this colony, then of course I wouldn't have gone for the ocean liner service. But now I have it already, and maybe it still will be the best decision to finish it, to be able to take an H3 wonder at some point. Flackk now, after the Suez Canal was taken away, makes the decision to go for the Harvard College. That is also a nice wonder for him, allowing him to get a bit of a science production boost, takes the reserves and also the urban growth. Then it is my turn. I don't want to see that. I could just get punished by a bunch of strength events. I mean, there are some events that I could maybe consider pushing, like civil unrest, but yeah, I just didn't want to push anything in this situation. And then I'm kind of forced to go for the cavalryman. There is also a copy of tanks available, which might be more efficient together with the hussars, but I can't build 2 tanks immediately this turn, and then I would be vulnerable to an aggression. A lot of colonization cards have been sent away for colonies in the last turn cycle, so definitely could be that I could get punished by an aggression, so I wanted to be safe from that, and at least I have a lot of population, so if I at the end maybe just build more cavalrymen, maybe in this situation it's not too bad to go for cavalrymen with the SARS tactic instead of tanks, because I have basically unlimited population from now on. And yeah, so I went for the cavalryman, and then I built to reveal the tactic, making sure that I'm not the weakest, that I'm not in danger of getting hit by an aggression. I have just 5 military actions, so just enough to be safe from an aggression from HealingAura. And then for my last 2 civil actions, I mainly had an eye on the International Red Cross that is coming down the road, which was also, by the way, a reason why I went for the ocean liner service. So might be a bit overkill, but with the Red Cross I have an alternative way to spend some food, so that was definitely a reasoning for going for the ocean liner service that I forgot to tell about. Yeah, and now the Red Cross is coming down the road, I have even more food, so I thought it could be nice to get a Red Cross. I was definitely not certain if it will be available for me at my next turn, because Flackk also has a lot of food production, can easily take it. The others not really, because they have a wonder lying around, but I thought Flackk with as many civil actions, a full hand and a lot of food might just take it away, but still, for in case it is available for me, I want to be prepared for it, and with that I just used my last 2 civil actions to yeah, to make as much as I can already to finish the ocean liner service the next turn very quickly. The next turn I can just finish it for 1 civil action, and then I have enough civil actions to take the Red Cross. If it is available for 1 civil action, I could even just finish the ocean liner service, take the Red Cross, and build 4 stages of the Red Cross immediately. Sadly, I'm missing 1 food to go for all 5 stages, so it's might be taken away, but I wanted to be prepared for it, and even when I don't get a Red Cross, it might still be nice to finish the ocean liner service. It's only 6 resources, which is of course a bit of an investment, but That could be very important to maybe have the option to take something like spaceflight later on. So I want to finish it at some point, and then it may be also nice to just finish it at the next turn already. Here I get a very interesting draw, because the mechanized army tactic has a lot of potential. I have just made a transition from swordsman into cavalryman. That comes in very handy now with drawing this tactic, especially I have the cannons already in hand. So with having this tactic and with me having unlimited population basically, I thought that I have now a lot of military potential, which could be now an interesting way to go for the rest of the game. SQ goes for the architecture, can develop it for free with new, and finishes the Suez Canal. Has indeed the autonomous territory, takes 5 additional resources from that colony, and 5 additional resources allow him to build an additional journalism, so that turn is quite a nice boost for his economy, finishing the Suez Canal, and then also getting a journalism going, the architecture doing some work immediately, and then he can get out of corruption with increasing his population 2 times. HealingAura builds an additional religion, and with that can develop the common thanks to the Acropolis bonus without having to play the revolutionary idea. Also has enough happy faces now to not have uprising issues after finishing the Gremlin, and now he has 7 civil and 5 military actions going, so that turn also gave him quite a big boost, and finally he was able to invest his resource into something nice, and at the next turn he can maybe start potentially to go for scientific method if he wants to, or maybe even computers potentially. I mean, he's missing 1 science for that, but still he maybe can start doing some nice stuff, and Anthony Gaudi might produce him even more culture soon. And there is some even more culture production with the International Tourism Pact, which I was not too happy to see, because it's quite a big one. It's very, very early. Flackk will go for the Red Cross, so HealingAura will soon get 4 additional culture production. Flackk will get 3 additional culture production, so a lot of additional culture for both of them, which I was not too happy to see, because before that pact was offered, I thought with my nice economy, I can maybe even in a peaceful way, relatively, I might have good chances to finish at a 2nd position, with just preparing for some impacts at some point, starting some culture reduction, maybe being able to go for wonder, or maybe for a nice leader. Especially Pierre could be interesting with me having a lot of population. But now with the additional culture, that definitely gets a little bit harder, and maybe pushes me a little bit more into the direction of just pushing for a lot of military, which might be the best thing to do anyway, depending on what cards I get. No, that definitely maybe makes it a bit harder to stay or catch up to them in culture in a peaceful way. Especially because Flackk, of course, gets some additional culture now also from the Red Cross. He builds 2 stages. If all of his opponents build now 1 stage, that means that he didn't get that much culture out of, but there actually is a decent amount of colonies in the game, so he still gets 12 additional culture in this case against all of his opponents for just an investment of a lot of civil actions. So definitely an understandable decision to go for the Red Cross. Also, especially with me, very nicely being able to go for it if he doesn't go for it. And at my turn, I then indeed made a decision to start pushing for a bit of military, because there are some interesting cards in a row, or especially the military theory, allowing me to invest my science into even more military action, and strength, allowing me maybe to build up a lot of military while drawing 3 cards every turn. And I have still a lot of turns left where I maybe can draw war, and also with pushing the politics of strength, at some point there might be another 5 additional draws. So with that I just thought it is quite likely to maybe get at least 1 war at some point, and then I have a lot of military potential with the mechanized army. Tactic, I don't know yet if I get the air forces, so no, that's of course not for certain, but of course I don't commit fully into military yet, I just prepare for it, but I can potentially still switch into something else in case I don't get the cards for it. This turn the popularization of science is revealed, that is best for me in SQ. I will of course build 1 stage of the Red Cross, because the food is just, I can so easily pay for that without basically missing anything. That's just something I definitely want to do. I also finished the ocean liner service, and then I will take the military theory, I will take the reserves. So I will start pushing a bit into a military direction. For that, the military theory is of course quite nice, but also the reserves, just getting as many resources as possible that I can use to build military units might be quite important, and also to take those resources away from my opponents. so I want to have both of those cards available. With my last civil action, I could just increase my population once normally. To have done that already, I could think about taking the endowment, but at the end I thought it is best to maybe just develop the military theory, because that makes sure that I'm not the weakest after my turn, even one of the two strongest. And no, so now of course I was hoping to maybe get a war at some point. That could be quite strong for me. But the culture gaps are also not that big. I mean, my opponents have more production, but I can maybe also still do some other stuff. If I wouldn't have the mechanized army tactic drawn, maybe I would have done something with computers or potentially gone for movies. Then I definitely would have already maybe made sure that I have some nice peaceful stuff to do. But with having this tactic and with getting a lot of draws, hopefully, as maybe even with the politics of strength, I just thought I want to go into a bit of a military heavy direction already, with committing to the reserves, the military theory, developing it already, and skipping the movies, the computers, and also the endowment. Then I use the ocean liner service. I used it at the end because I had to figure out my turn in order to see if I maybe want to save some food with increasing my population first normally. I don't get a war. The impact of harmony, which has some potential with me getting a lot of population. I maybe have the potential to make that impact quite big at some point. SQ offers me a peace treaty, but no, I want to potentially go for a military push, and I don't want SQ to be safe from that, just for a bit of culture. So I reject the pact. SQ builds also one stage of the Red Cross, develops the cannons, builds one that gets him out of corruption, takes the tanks, the modern infantry, and the fundamentalism. So here, maybe sees what direction I want to go here, and prepares himself very nicely. Maybe also some military ambitions for himself. If he has a nice tactic available, can maybe also go for war himself. Then Healing Aura Seeds, and event revealed is the emigration, but no one loses any population. He also will build a stage of the Red Cross, takes the computers, another revolutionary idea, the movies, builds a knight, that makes it that he is the strongest still, plays the revolutionary idea, and then also takes the engineering genius, and at the next turn he can maybe then finally go for Anthony Gaudi, develop some technologies for cheaper, and invest his resource that he has. Flack seeds, and refugees are revealed. Flack will lose a population, Healing Aura will gain an additional population. And Flack makes the decision to lose a warrior. It's definitely annoying for him, because he will now go for the cannons and will get stronger. So he could have potentially not gotten hit by those, but he made the decision to seed while being weakest and gets a bit punished for that now. But I will do the same decision, so it was definitely nice for me that the refugees were not revealed as the last card of the deck. And this turn the question is what to seed, and I think here I maybe made a mistake when seeding. I just maybe made my decision too quickly, because I mainly considered either the crime wave or the impact of harmony. Mostly civil unrest has the potential to hit me if I don't find the resources or civil actions to build a bread and circus in time. International agreement, I probably want to use every politics phase that I have, with getting that many draws and with having some military ambitions, so I don't want to see that. So I thought a crime wave, just for some culture for my opponents, or the impact of harmony, which would have the advantage that there are only 3 H2 events, making it more likely that the politics of strength is revealed quicker. While my harmony is not good at the moment, I definitely have the potential to make that quite big. But that is also the issue with seeding it now. It might be revealed quite early before I maybe can place all of those populations nicely for the impact of armies, so I didn't want to commit to that. And at the end I see the crime wave, and after seeding I noticed that why the heck didn't I even thought about a terrorism? Because that one is a very tempting event to play. The event deck will flip, and there is just a good chance that I will have the least culture when it will be revealed, and then I could potentially destroy journalism from SQ, an organized religion from Healing Aura. For Flack at this point it's not that bad, but he might also go for some urban buildings potentially. So I think the right decision here would actually be to push the terrorism. It's not a clear mistake, so there are some arguments to not go for it, because if my opponents don't push quickly, and if I maybe even get my first war early and maybe go for it, there is definitely the chance that at the end I might have not the least culture, but I think there's a good chance that I have the least culture and that it is maybe revealed quickly, and then it has just a lot bigger impact than the crime wave. And so I was quite annoyed that I just overlooked that completely, but that happens when you maybe sometimes play a bit too quickly. But it's also not too bad. The crime wave hopefully will also be a fine event, and now the economic progress is revealed. Probably I would have seeded the terrorism if I would have thought about this option. I have now even more food and also some additional resources available, and I was very happy to see at my turn that their first copy of Air Force is available. So far the pieces of the puzzle to go for a big military push are coming together very nicely. The only thing I need basically now is a war. If I get a war, I can just go for a lot of strength with air forces and cannons and this nice tactic, and then maybe do some nice stuff with those big wars. So I definitely, first of all, use the ocean liner service to increase my population, and then I definitely want to take the air forces. I want to develop the cannons, build at least 2, and reveal the tactic that of course gives my opponents the knowledge about the tactic, but I just can use all of my free military actions, and also it makes sure that I'm the strongest even with a bit of a lead, making it more likely that I can win the politics of strength, making it less easy, for example, for SQ to get stronger than me. So that's what I definitely wanted to do. And then before the economic progress was revealed, my idea was just to take both patriotisms, getting as many resources for the military as possible and also taking those away from my opponents. But now I would have corruption when I do this, so I still only take this copy of patriotism for one civil action, and then instead of taking the second one and then having corruption, I think that's just not worthwhile. I instead increase my population 2 times, and it allows me also to build 1 additional cannon, making sure that I'm even stronger using another free military action that I have. And already at the next turn I could go for 1 cannon and an air force, so if I draw a war I might have the potential to go for one already at the next turn, and of course I was hoping that the politics of strength is revealed soon to give me an even bigger shot to get a war at some point. And I was very happy to see that I actually do get a war, so at the next turn I might have the option to already go for one. SQ offers the military alliance to Flackk, that of course might help them defend against a war from me. SQ goes for the military build-up, the patriotism, develops the modern infantry for free with Newton, builds a cannon, takes the revolutionary idea, the efficient upgrade, builds the bread and circuses, and then goes for 2 upgrades, getting out of corruption, spending a lot of his resources, and with the military build-up and the patriotism, also the fundamentalism and the tanks in hand, he definitely has some ways to threaten some strength. HealingAura goes for Anthony Gaudi, develops the movies, develops the computers, and takes the multimedia. Generally a nice turn, getting a lot of stuff going, but also committing a lot of resources to those things, and with me just having revealed a tactic, it's definitely a bit of a greedy move. Maybe he thought he needs to take some risks in order to catch up, or maybe was hoping that I won't go for a war against him because he's a bit behind, there's the danger that he might resign. But no, definitely a big resource commitment. I mean, there aren't any H3 military technologies that he can go for at this point, so maybe he just thought it doesn't make a big difference if he doesn't have a nice tactic or something. Then getting 1 additional medieval army tactic doesn't make a big difference, but just being able to threaten some stuff even if you don't have the tactic can be important, so that is definitely a big resource investment. And could potentially get punished depending on what decision I do at my next turn. Flackk will play the revolutionary idea, develops the air force, increases population, builds 1, increases population again, builds a lab for free, and that lab could potentially allow him to maybe go for journalism at the next turn in case the game isn't violent, or maybe he had some other things in mind that he might need the science for. It's also just for free, so just might be nice in general. And now it is my turn, and I have to make a decision. Do I want to go for this war already this turn? Do I maybe want to push? And maybe I have a shot at getting the politics of strength and see if I maybe get even an additional war, or maybe some impacts that I can prepare myself for. And no. So of course I checked what my opponents can do, and Flackk and SQ are actually pretty safe from the war, at least this turn, because Flackk Has the options to go for 2 more cannons in an air force because he's the Harvard College, and there are definitely some reserves left. He has a lot of civil actions, so he just has the potential to do this. And yeah, with this potential, he could potentially threaten 2 entrenchments tactics with air forces, and that would be enough for him to defend himself. SQ's best defense would be to go for fundamentalism and for 3 defensive armies tactic. If I didn't overlook anything, that should be better than going for H3 tactics, at least for now. Maybe not long term, but for just defending for this one turn, that might be his best solution. And with that, he also can go for more, as I can do. So going for a war against those 2 is definitely not an option. If possible, I might have liked to go for a war against those 2, because those seem to be the the players with the best positions, so that I can maybe hit one of them and maybe have good chances to finish before them, and then maybe still finish before Healing Aura. So the question is basically, do I want to go for a war against Healing Aura this turn, or do I want to delay the war, potentially building up even more military, so that I can either go against Flackk or SQ at some point, or maybe against Healing Aura when there is no threat to resign, because that was the main issue that I had with declaring a war against him. He just isn't prepared at all to defend. I mean, he has to wave, so he can maybe do a little bit, but he doesn't have enough science to threaten any military attack. So yeah, he's just not threatening a lot of military. Definitely, and with that, and with him having the least culture out of my opponents, he might resign, but he also has a lot of production going. There's always the hope that maybe I go for a war against one of his opponents, or it could definitely also be that he does still have some hope left and makes the decision to not resign, and then the war, of course, would grant me a lot of culture. And also the thing is, I can declare the war, and I actually still draw 3 cards. So I draw 3 cards, maybe another 3 cards at the end of my next turn, and there might be the politics of strength revealed. So I just thought I can go for this war, and there's a decent chance that I maybe get even an additional war. And there is the chance that Healing Aura doesn't resign, and with that I made the decision to go for the war. I want to build up some military anyway. I could have just pushed an event, but I can also just declare the war now, and maybe push an event at the next turn, hoping to get a politics of strength out. And maybe if I get another war, go for a second war in 2 turns. And so at the end I made the decision to go for this war against Healing Aura. I will increase my population once normally, once with the Ocean Liner service, play the patriotism, develop the air forces, build 1 cannon, build 1 air force, play the reserves, build in bread and circuses, increase my population normally, build another bread and circuses for some additional strength. Also, I need those bread and circuses soon anyway. Also, I was really eyeing Pierre at this point, because it's late in the game and no other leader can give me that much value over such few time than Pierre can do with the Olympic Games and his nice culture production together with the arena. So no, I was hoping that I maybe have a chance to get him. I don't take any cards. SQ, who is also prepared for Pierre, maybe doesn't have a good chance that he is revealed now, and then maybe I have a chance to get him at the next turn potentially. And yeah, so with 62 strength, there should be no way how Healing Aura can win the war. The biggest danger for me is just that he might just resign, and I don't get a lot out of this war. But with me getting still 3 draws, if I wouldn't get any draws now, then I think maybe I would have waited. Maybe it could still be the right decision to wait, because it's not for certain that the politics of strength is revealed in time. And yeah, so even if it is revealed and I get 2 more draws and it's not for certain that I get an additional war, maybe it is better to wait until Healing Aura can't resign, or until I can maybe go against one of the other opponents. So definitely could be a fine decision to also just seed an event into the deck here, maybe seed the Impact of Harmony now, for example, now that I have more time to prepare for it. But at the end I made the decision to go for the war already, because I thought with this big culture reduction there might be some hope left for Healing Aura, even if he loses a bunch of culture now, and also with me at least maybe having a decent chance to get a second war at some point. Of course I was interested to see if I might get a second war immediately already now, but I don't. But I still was somewhat happy with this draw, because the impact of population has of course a lot of potential with my many populations that I will still be able to get during the course of the game, and the impact of progress is also a very decent impact for me at this point. SQ reveals the modern army tactic that allows him to get some value out of the military buildup. He develops the tanks, builds one, upgrades one swordsman to modern infantry, is now at 51 strength. With that he is maybe relatively safe from an aggression and also does the best he can to defend against the military push. There aren't any resource yellow cards that he can take from the rows, or maybe that's just the best that he can do, and he grabs the space flight so that he has a wonder that he can finish maybe in 2 turns. Now, of course, I was very interested to see if HealingAura will resign or not. And sadly, he will make the decision to resign. Definitely an understandable decision, especially if he doesn't have any tactic that he can work with. I think he still had 1 H2 card still in hand. If that is the classic army, then maybe he can do something, but if not, he just doesn't have any tactic to work with. Maybe the conquistadors, of course, could be there as well, but even then he would lose the war, and with him having the least culture at this point out of his opponents anyway, and then losing a lot of culture, it's definitely an understandable decision, even though there's maybe still a little bit of hope left, with me potentially being able to go for a war against one of his opponents, but I think it's a fine decision to resign here, and definitely something that I had taken into account. So, no, of course I would have preferred, or it would have been better for me if he plays on, but no, that's what I had to expect. Flack Seeds, I of course was really hoping for the Politics of Strength to be revealed. Sadly, that event is not revealed yet. Instead, a developed territory, and I didn't want to send any unit away because I still was hoping that maybe I can go for a war, and for that I maybe need as much resources as I can, even though the chances that I can really go threaten a big war for the turn in 2 turns is maybe not that high, because I can build another air force the next turn, but in order to threaten an additional army I would need 2 reserves. Sadly, 1 reserves would not be enough, then I would be missing 1 resource, so it's maybe not likely that I get 2 reserves at my next turn. So the question is if I can even go for second war at all, but still I at least wanted to leave the possibility open. And I really don't need the science, the hero tokens, so I just passed in this colony and all of the other players pass as well. Flack plays the positional army tactics, showing that he has a nice tactic available, also going up to 53 strength. Then plays the patriotism, builds 1 rifleman, takes Churchill, doesn't elect him yet, maybe wants to keep Napoleon, maybe in order to be able to defend against an aggression, or maybe with hoping that he can still use his military action at the next turn, and then he's also taking the urban growth. With both of my opponents going for a lot of strength, I basically I have to use my politics action to seed, which is fine because I have drawn some nice impacts, but I can't really go for an aggression, which of course could have been an option if they don't have as much strength. But now I will seed, and the first impact that I wanted to seed is the impact of population. There hopefully will be some time until it will be revealed, so that I hopefully still get a lot of population out, and it's just a very strong impact for me. I seeded into the deck. Of course, I was hoping for the Politics of Strengths to get some additional draws in, and it would be nice to have the knowledge about those draws already this turn. No, but instead a Cold War is revealed, another strength event, some additional science for me. Maybe I don't really need the science, but no, at least no hurtful event, meaning the last 2 events are now the Crime Wave and the Politics of Strength. And with me not having a war yet, I definitely had to question myself, do I even want to prepare for war? Because what you can actually see is that there are actually 2 copies of reserves in a row, meaning I can build an air force this turn and then threaten another army, I think going up to 95 strength or something like this, if I remember my calculations correctly. So I can definitely threaten a lot of strength, but I don't have a war yet. I get 3 draws, and if I take both of those reserves, it's actually quite likely that the age will end after SQ's turn, so the Politics of Strength will only give me cards if it is revealed immediately on SQ's turn, which is definitely not a given. Even if SQ seeds, it's only 50-50 chance, and he's the weakest, so maybe he doesn't want to seed, or maybe he doesn't have anything to seed. So the question is, do I still want to threaten this amount of strength, or do I maybe just want to start doing some nice peaceful stuff, maybe building a movie, maybe taking the United Nations, still taking a copy of reserves, and now just transitioning into a peaceful option? Maybe that would be nice, but I also thought it could have quite an effect to still keep the pressure alive, because if I don't threaten enough military, and 1 air force might not really be that threatening now, that both of my opponents have a good tactic to work with, now that all of them have the ability to go to get air forces, just 1 air force is not really enough. I need to threaten an additional tactic, and if I don't threaten a lot of strength, It could just be a lot easier for my opponents to play the remaining game, but if I threaten the amount of strength, their actions are maybe a little bit forced. I was especially thinking about Pierre with that, because I really thought if I don't get a war, and then if I want to have a chance to catch up peacefully, I might really need Pierre. Without Pierre, it might be really, really tough to do. But with Pierre and getting his Olympic Games and a big boost in culture production, maybe it could be possible to do it. And no, but if I don't threaten any military strength now and still take some cards, so that there may be 3 or even 4 new cards revealed, there's definitely a decent chance that Pierre is already revealed on SQ's turn. If I don't have any military pressure, he can relatively easily maybe just take him, then he gets the Olympic Games for himself and the nice ability of Pierre. But if I threaten a lot of military, then SQ maybe has to spend as many actions as possible to defend against the wall, maybe has to go for Marlene just in order to threaten more strength, making it a lot more harder for him to get at Pierre. So also in case I don't get a war, the military pressure might actually have an effect. Might allow me to get Pierre, might force the options or the actions of my opponents. Also, just taking both of the reserves also takes them away. For example, SQ at this point has 9 resources plus 7, meaning he has 16 in 2 turns, just enough to finish the space flight. The problem for him is he can't get out of corruption without spending resources, meaning at this point he can't finish the space flight unless he gets the last copy of reserves. So if I don't take both reserves, he can finish the space flight for certain, but if I take both of them away, not only do I threaten a lot of military, but I also there's a chance that SU at the end maybe can't finish the space flight. So no. And of course there's the chance that I just draw a war, either with my draw step or maybe with the politics of strength being revealed on SQ's turn, and then if one of my opponents is not careful, there's a chance that I can still pull a second war off. And with all of those arguments, I made a decision to not go for anything like movies. It's a bit of a tough decision, because with this copy of Movies Gone, there's no movies left, no multimedias, so I can't really do that much. But the good news is I still have this Impact of Harmony, and no, I might have the potential to make that one actually quite big. So while I can't invest into movies and also not in a wonder with the United Nations gone in case I don't get a war, at least I have an impact that I can invest some resource into to make it really, really big. And that at the end made me think that maybe it's not too bad to miss out on those options, and instead just make sure that I get both of those reserves going, increase my population, and increase my population again, build 1 Air Force. I could have also not built the Air Force, leaving more resource available, but still nice. Then maybe my opponents also have to be afraid from an aggression, and also just makes it more likely that I'm able to win those strength events that are still in the deck. I could have still taken one of those movies, but then there are even more cards revealed. That makes it more likely that SQ gets the last copy of reserves, that Pierre is revealed, and because there might still be a way how he can maybe take him, especially if I take another card, then Pierre might even be available for 2, or the reserves might be available for 2, which might allow him to maybe figure out a turn where he can defend himself while also being able to go for Pierre. So so I at the end made the decision to just increase my population instead of taking this movie, which could have been also an option. Now, of course, I was very interested to see, do I get a second war now? And I don't get a second war. Some more impacts, seedable impacts, not really good impacts, so probably not better than the ones that I have already in hand. So my impact draws are definitely very fine. There's some impacts that I can definitely score very nicely on, but not a second war. But there is still the chance that if SQ seeds, that a politics of strength is revealed, which could also give me a war that I might be able to go for. And now SQ at his turn won't go for his politics phase, meaning sadly no politics of strength, and very likely the age will end now, meaning there won't be a second war from me, and I somehow have to figure something out with the impacts that I have in hand. But at least I have some nice impacts to figure something out. That's definitely nice. And also, as you can see, there is a copy of reserves, there is Pierre. So now I was also very interested to see, will SQ go for Pierre or not? I was really afraid that he will go for him. And I was really hoping that my military pressure will prevent him from going for him. And there's also this copy of reserves that SQ needs in order to finish the spaceflight, maybe also to threaten enough strength. First of all, he will go for the Air Force, develops it for 3 with Newton, and I was really relieved to see that he will go for Marlene Dietrich, electing her, taking the reserves so that he can finish the spaceflight at the next turn with his last civil action. He can increase his population, build a swordsman. Thanks to Marlene's ability, he is now at 61 strength, so he is maybe it makes the difference between being able to defend against an aggression or not. If it doesn't make a difference, at least it threatens to make the difference to me, so that Marlene helps SQ to make him safe from the military. And also, if he would have taken Pierre instead, then he wouldn't have had the last civil action to increase his population, meaning he would have corruption. And now, actually, even without Marlene, I think he has enough resources to go for, I mean, he has 13, 17, 21, so he would have enough to go for a tank and 2 air forces, even with Pierre now, but he actually wouldn't have, because of the additional civil action cost, meaning that if I would have taken the movies, then the copy of reserves would have been here, and maybe then SQ could have considered Pierre a lot more, because yeah, then he maybe can threaten enough military, even with Pierre, and maybe is more in danger of getting hit by the military than by an aggression. But no, maybe that not taking the movies could potentially make a difference here. And I was happy to get Pierre, because without Pierre and now with missing out on the movies, I thought it could be very difficult to overcome the culture difference, especially because SQ will be able to finish the space flight. And I don't have any wonder. I have some impacts that I can work with, but without Pierre, I thought it will be very, very tricky to overtake one of my opponents, so I was very happy to see that maybe my military pressure at least leads to SQ not being able to get Pierre. Flackk, now it's Flack's turn, and first of all H4 will start. He loses Napoleon, and he also of course has to be concerned about a potential war from me. He goes for the professional sports, goes for Churchill, takes the engineering, develops the engineering, builds one pro sports, destroys a lab and builds an air force and a rifleman. Building those 2 already this turn is important, because he's actually only 2 military actions, but now he has enough to build 2 more cannons, and with that would be able to threaten enough strength, and also SQ. Both of them would now be prepared to go defend against the war, so drawing the second war wouldn't actually have done anything for me, or not that much. So yeah, but now both of them had to invest something into it, where their actions were a bit forced, so that at least was already some value that I got out of threatening that potential war. Flackk sadly takes the engineering and the civil service away, with that making my potential impact of progress a little bit weaker. And as you maybe notice, Flackk has only 2 cards in hand, only 2 military actions, and I have 13 more strength, meaning even if both of those are defense cards, he can't defend, meaning I have a guaranteed aggression against him, and that was basically the biggest decision for my next turn, because my turn was relatively clear, but the question is, how do we want me to use my politics phase? I definitely want to push the impact of harmony in there, because I at this point have the chance to make that one really, really big. Maybe as big as I never have made the impact of harmony before. So that I want to see it definitely. So if I, for example, go for an armed intervention against Flackk now, I would do this now, and at the next turn go for the Olympic Games with Pierre, and then go for the impact of harmony. So the question is, do I want to go for this armed intervention? The other questions I didn't really consider. Maybe there could be a case, in case I really want to play for first place, to try and occupy against SQ, hope that he can't defend and remove his ability to finish the space flight, but then he can do some other stuff, maybe prepare better for impacts, and it's not guaranteed that it hits, so I don't think that should be considered that much. And then against Flackk, I don't think the occupy or the raid are better aggressions than the armed intervention here. The armed intervention gives me +7 against SQ and basically a +14 swing against Flackk. And the impact that I could seed instead would be at the impact of progress, and with the culture for seeding already included, that would give me +7 against Flackk, so 7 less against Flackk, but +9 against SQ. And the impact of progress is basically locked in, because none of the players has the ability at this point to make it bigger, unless SQ goes for fundamentalism revolution, but that won't happen. So so the impact of progress is not as good when we just take the total amount of value that I gain against both players. With the armed intervention, I gain +14 against Flackk. So but I had, of course, to answer myself the question, how good is my position exactly against my opponents, and is there maybe a case that I rather want to get more points against SQ? So I did some calculations with the impacts that I will have in there, with the amount of points that I will be able to have, and how much my opponents very likely will have at the end of their turns. And with Flackk not having any wonder, with him not having the ability to build any movies or some stuff, I thought that I actually have some decent chances, some very decent chances to finish before him, because the impact of Harmony will just be very, very big, impact of Population will be big, and the impact of Progress not that big, but at least also gives me some additional points. And additionally, there are still those strength events coming, which Politics of Strength at this point will give me some additional culture. The crime wave will cause both of my opponents to lose some culture. So there, with that and the impacts, there's just a lot of culture to be gained. With Pierre and the Olympic Games, even more culture. And I thought I actually have good chances to finish before Flackk. And I also thought, even if SQ finishes the spaceflight now, I might also have some chances to finish before him actually. So yeah, with that at the end I made a decision to see the impact of progress instead of going for the armed intervention, because I wanted to play for first place, and I thought that even with not going for the armed intervention and missing out on some points against Flackk, I still have very decent chances to finish before him. It's not guaranteed, so it's a bit of a risk, it can backfire. And maybe Flackk at the end finishes before me, but I was willing to take that risk in order to get 2 additional points against SQ, and it's not only the 2 additional points, because it could also be that the Politics of Strength is revealed now, or is on top, and then it would be revealed now, meaning SQ will lose some culture and I will gain 1. If I don't see it and go for the aggression, then SQ, if he doesn't see it, or maybe also if he sees and the Politics of Strength is the second, or the not the event on top, but the event after that, then it could be, because SQ has the patriotism, can just easily upgrade the swordsman to modern infantry, then he will overtake Flackk in strength, meaning seeding now could also make the difference between SQ losing the Politics of Strength or not, meaning that I can gain even some more points to him, increasing my chances to win this game. And also it could be that both of my opponents don't seed at all, and in this case one of the H2 events would not be revealed, meaning that I wouldn't gain the culture out of one of those two. And with those arguments, in addition to my hope to still finish at a first place, which I thought I might need a nice combination of impacts, but it is possible at least, and I was hoping that I have decent chances against Flackk. And with those arguments in addition to that, I was willing to seed, and I started with pushing the impact of progress, just because that one is locked in basically. The next turn I can't go for an aggression anyway because of the Olympic Games, and then I just thought maybe there is something happening that makes me that I don't want to go for big harmony and build something else, for example prepare for impact of strength or some stuff. I thought it's basically impossible because that has just a lot of potential, but maybe there's a chance, and then I wanted to see the impact first. That is basically locked in from how strong it is. And the event revealed is the crime wave, so sadly no Politics of Strength yet, but at least that event will lead to both of my opponents losing some culture. And then I will increase my population only with the ocean liner service, but I have enough to increase my population 2 times at the next turn normally, and with the ocean liner service in this turn I just went for Pierre. I wanted to build this additional arena, I just wanted to build up as much culture production as possible, and I could have just increased my population normally already, but I made the decision that it's worthwhile to deny the professional sports here, because SQ has the efficient upgrade and can just go for 1 upgrade while also finishing the space flight. That would help him for a lot of impacts, impact of happiness, for the impact of population that's actually in there, architecture, competition won't be in there, but still a lot of impacts, potentially also impact of strength. So I have just wanted to go for that denial, and with that didn't increase my population normally this turn. And no, at the next turn I can increase my population 2 times normally, 1 times with the ocean liner service. I have 8 population here, I have 8 population in the urban buildings, and with 3 additional population I can go for an harmony where I have 8 population in each area, which I'm not sure if I had this before, so that was basically my plan for the next turn, to make the impact of harmony as big as possible. When we take a look at the culture at the end of my turn, we can see that I'm still a bit behind. but I will get the Olympic Games, a bit more culture production than my opponents, and I have some strong impacts in there, but SQ will get the space flight, so he has definitely still a bit of a lead at the moment. SQ, now that the pro sports aren't available, will go for the rockets, plays the patriotism, goes for an upgrade from swordsman to modern infantry. With that he gets some additional strength, because now he has 2 times the not outdated army, thanks to Marlene. It's now at 70 strength. He didn't seed, meaning that the politics of strength might now, if Flackk seeds, then he will lose it, and SQ could potentially manage to avoid losing to that event. He then plays the resources, so thanks to the help of that he is able to finish the space flight, and he has to avoid an uprising, destroys a mine, which is an understandable decision, but I was happy to see it, because that will make his impact of harmony weaker, but I think it's probably the right call, depending of course of what knowledge he has, but if he doesn't have knowledge about impact of science, then I think it's a tough decision to destroy this lab. He would then keep his harmony better intact, but there's one impact seeded, which was seeded by HealingAura, and he went for computers, so he potentially could have seeded impact of science in, and also if he destroys it and I have the impact of science in hand, then I can just seed it in my into the deck in my last turn. So yeah, it might turn out bad for him if there's no impact of science in there, so I was happy to see it, but I think it's the right call, very likely. And then spaceflight gives SQ 28 points, definitely quite a decent spaceflight. Now it is Flack's turn. Of course, it's interesting to see if he will seed. Then he will open the politics of strength now. He doesn't seed, builds another pro sports, destroys a mine, builds a cannon, destroys a lab actually, and builds another cannon, which is very interesting to see. That actually means that he is now the strongest, which is quite good for him with the politics of strength coming, but it also is kind of an indicator that maybe he has seeded impact of strength in there actually. And no, that is definitely interesting to see. Of course, at my turn, even though I don't win the politics of strength, sadly, I still want to push, of course, because I have a very strong impact in hand. The impact of harmony, I use the Olympic Games, the politics of strength is revealed. SQ will lose now 3 culture, Flackk will gain 5 additional culture. I can use the ocean liner service, I can increase my population 2 times normally, then I want to just build a bunch of farms or mines. Of course, I could think about maybe building some military, but I didn't really think about it, because I actually have to calculate if I could even get stronger, but I don't think I can. Yeah, building 3 units would give me plus 19, that would be 1 short, and I would have 9 plus 8, I would have 2 resources left, only allowing me to build a warrior, so a Flackk made sure that he, if the impact of strength is in there, is able to win it. So I don't have even the option, meaning I can just fully concentrate myself in the harmony. And even if I would have the option, as I didn't even consider it, I didn't even calculate it, because I just think I should prepare for the very big impact that I have in there. I can improve that by plus 12, so that should be the best thing to do. And question is, of course, do I want to build mines or farms? And with Flackk and SQ both having destroyed a mine at their turn, I made a decision to rather build farms, because I thought it's more likely that the impact of agriculture is in there. The one impact from HealingAura, of course, could be the impact of industry, but yeah, I just thought agriculture should be more likely, and build 2 farms. And I want to build 1 more farm, but there are 2 different options. I definitely also wanted to develop the bro sports to prepare for a potential impact of technology. And I could now either just build another HA farm and upgrade this arena to bro sports, or I can play reserves and then build an H2 farm directly. It's very similar, but with building the H2 farm directly, I have plus 2 for a potential impact of agriculture. With upgrading this arena to bro spots, I have plus 2 for an impact of architecture. Normally bro spots are nice to have for a lot of impacts, but in this case I have already full happy phases, I have knowledge about impact of competition, and it doesn't make a difference for the strength. So it's basically only the question, what do I think is more likely to be in there, architecture, agriculture, and maybe also what impact might be more important to prepare for, but it's relatively similar. That isn't really a big difference. SQ has an architecture from 6 and an agriculture, and Flackk has also architecture from 6, and this amount of agriculture at this point would already be a little bit better. So if I want to spread out my impacts a little bit more, that I have more slightly good impacts, then it could be an argument to go for the impact of architecture, but I just mainly thought about what impact is more likely to be in there, and it's not a clear case. All of the players could have seeded Impact of Agriculture, but also, so that you know, one impact was seeded by HealingAura, 2 by Flackk, none by SQ, so he seems that he didn't get any nice impact, which is of course quite a bit unfortunate. No, HealingAura I thought definitely could have seeded Impact of Architecture, especially with him going for all of those urban buildings, but at a point when he seeded it, I think it wasn't a turn where he went for all of those. I thought it might have been possible because he knew that he might be able to go for those soon, but yeah, it's maybe still was a bit of a risk at a point. Flackk has only those pro spots, so I just thought Impact of Agriculture is maybe a bit more likely to be in there, and with that I made a decision to rather prepare for that impact and went for this additional farm. No, and that is the end of my turn, and I did some calculations also to make the decision about impact, to see how the situation is actually looking, because I have 3 impacts from myself and 3 are unknown, and with adding the cards from my impacts, I'm actually in the lead at the moment already, 2 points before SQ and 16 points before Flackk, so I definitely thought I might have some chances maybe to even win this game, but it depends of course on what the 3 impacts that I don't have knowledge about, what impacts those are. I thought that maybe the impact of strength is likely in there, which could be good for me because I have a lead against Flackk and it would give me +7 against SQ. And no, then it just depends what impacts are in there. Impact of wonders would be very bad, so there are definitely some bad ones, and no, a very close situation. Let's take a last look at the culture before the final impact evaluation. So at the moment I'm quite behind, but as I said, with my impacts added in there, I am actually already slightly in the lead. But then of course there are 3 impacts that weren't seeded by me. And let's take a look at the final impacts. The first impact that we have is the impact of population. That one is really strong for me with having had the ocean liner service, selective breeding, and a very strong yellow bang. It gives me +28, so catching up +14 against both of my opponents. Then the next impact is the impact of harmony, and I'm not sure if I ever had such a big harmony. It gives me +32 points, allowing me to overtake Flackk and now being 4 points behind SQ. So now with that I'm at the 2nd position, and then the 3rd impact that we see here is actually also from me, so all of my impacts are out. And as you can see now I'm in the lead, 2 points before SQ, 16 points before Flackk. But now the 3 unknown impacts are coming, and the first one is the impact of variety. That is a good one for me, but even better for SQ. It gives him +20, it's +16 for Flackk, so it doesn't change too much. Then the 5th impact is the impact of happiness, and that one is a bad one for SQ, with me having taken the bro spots away. He wasn't able to fix his happy faces, otherwise he couldn't have finished the space flight, so he loses 6 points to both me and Flackk, and now there's 1 impact left. And the last impact is actually the impact of strength, giving me +7 and giving Flackk +14 against SQ, and with that he is even able to overtake SQ, finishing at the 2nd position with a 2 points lead before SQ, and I'm at the end actually able to win this game. So that was definitely quite a wild finish. I definitely didn't thought that I would win this game. I thought that without a 2nd ward might be difficult to win this game, but I got some nice impacts, and that definitely gave me some hope to at least finish at the 2nd position and maybe have a shot at potentially winning the game. And no, but that I did indeed win the game, even with a little bit of a lead now, was definitely a surprise for me. But I didn't get a 2nd war, which at the end I wouldn't have been able to declare anyway, but I was able to get some nice impacts. The strongest thing in my civilization was that I have tons of population coming in, and I got the 2 main impacts for that, impact of population and impact of harmony, so I definitely had some very nice impact draws with those 2 impacts. And with those 2 impacts, I even though my only warder that I declared ended with a resignation, storing me only 7 points, thanks to those very strong impacts and also the impact of progress, I in the end actually was still able to win this game. Also of course with the pressure, causing my opponents to react, not allowing them to maybe invest into more culture production, maybe preventing SQ from taking PR, otherwise he might have taken him. And that also definitely did something, even with me not declaring a war against them, just the pressure. And then with having those nice impacts, I'm actually able to win this game at the end. And I think for SQ it's definitely an unfortunate ending, because he had the spaceflight, had a lead going into the final impacts, and now I have both of those strong population impacts for myself, and then there was also the politics of strength revealed after Flack's turn, and the impact of strength in there, giving a very big swing from it's just a very big swing between SQ and Flackk, allowing Flackk to overtake SQ, and SQ actually finished at the 3rd position. So definitely an unlucky and unfortunate ending for him. That definitely could have easily gone into a different direction. Also, my decision to not go for the armed intervention, instead see the impact of progress, also was a swing where Flackk potentially could have lost more culture, which already, depending on how, if maybe some things would have changed then, but which also maybe could have, or which also would have allowed SQ to at least finish at the 2nd place. So a very unfortunate ending for him. I think it was quite unlikely that SQ finishes in the 3rd position, but no, unlucky ending for him. Flackk manages now to finish at the 2nd position, and I at the end was able to win this game. HealingAura had a bit of a tough game with losing Homer, which I had a part to do with that, unfortunately for him. With my decision to take the bread and circuses, which also turned out very nicely for myself, being able to go for Pierre. And then he had just a lot of production, but few civil actions, few science, which can be very tough to play. He then managed to build up something nice at the end of H2, beginning of H3, but just wasn't able to prepare for the military at the same time, so it was just a tough game for him. But quite an interesting game, and definitely a bit of a surprise for me at the end that I'm actually able to win it. But those big impacts definitely helped me a lot, and a harmony of 32, definitely very nice to achieve that. And that's definitely doesn't happen that often. Alright, so of course I'm very happy about this outcome. And now with this game finished, we will take a look at the current standings. And with the game finished, we have now the following standings. The detectives among you maybe noticed that at the beginning of the video I had 2 games finished. Now I actually have 4 games finished already, and the reason for that is that I decided to not show one of the 2-player games against HealingAura, because the difference in points between us in the standings is now just very big, so it probably the game is not that relevant for the standings. Of course, still important for me to have the 4 additional points, and it also just maybe wasn't the most exciting game at the end. I just managed to get Bach and the Ocean Liner service and managed to defend myself, so nothing unusual for a 2-player game, and so I decided to skip this one and go right into this 4-player game that we just saw. But that means that with half the games gone, I have managed to win all of them so far, so of course I'm very happy about my start. But it definitely could have easily also been different. Maybe you remember the 2-player game against Flackk, where I somehow managed to win at the end, and now at this game I also didn't really expect to win this during most of H3, but at this end somehow managed to do it with those big impacts. So I was able to win all of my games, but it definitely easily could have been the other way, or not that I don't have that many points, but of course I'm very happy about it. The start should be a good foundation to hopefully advance to the upper bracket of the next stage. And there was also another 2-player game finished between Flackk and SQ, I think, and there SQ managed to defeat Flackk, meaning that SQ now, after 2 games finished, has 5 points, has still a lot of games to come, so he can still score a lot of points. Flackk is at the moment, has more points, but has already 5 games finished, so for him, he really needs to win all of the games if he still wants to win the group, so that is difficult to achieve, but at least he has a very good position at the moment to continue the tournament in the lower bracket and might still have some chances to win the group. And for HealingAura, so far the stage didn't go really that great for him, and so he has 0 points at the moment, but still 4 games to come, and also as the 3rd place he would move on to the next stage, so there's definitely still some hope left for him, because the 3rd place could definitely be manageable if he gets some points in. Alright, so those are the current standings. I'm definitely happy about my position in the standings. I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. I think it was quite an exciting one at the end, and so I hope you also enjoyed that one. And thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.